This is the Misdirected Mark Podcast, a podcast about gaming, game mastering, and entertaining you, our listeners. We are explicit, you have been warned, and I'd like to thank Mike Willard for letting us use his music on our show. Now let's pick up those mics and get on with this thing.
Well, shit, buddy. We set Bob on fire and he died.
I know, man. I don't know. What do we do now? Do we like cancel the show or something? I honestly didn't think this would actually happen.
But you're never unprepared.
Yeah, I was never unprepared for, Bob living after we set him on fire. Like I didn't have enough time to plan for what would happen if we killed him, like setting him on fire.
Yeah, and I even brought marshmallows, but not for when he died.
I know, it was odd how they got kind of a bit of a bacon flavor when we roasted him over Bob.
Yeah, he does kind of have a bacony flavor to him, doesn't he? He likes to give that bacon.
Oh, what?
Well,
Knuckleheads. Just resurrect me. All you need is 5,000 gold pieces worth of diamond dust.
Bob, you're a ghost?
And you still smell like bacon.
Yes, and yes, because bacon is the best.
Okay, true, bacon is the best, but dude, 5,000 gold pieces? Do you know how much money that is?
Man,
Let alone in diamond dust?
We could figure this out. This is what we do, right? We solve problems.
I mean, I guess.
And with that, this is the 800 Misdirected Mark word scramble
Oh, the
to start the
800th
show.
episode.
I'm forecasting from the future. From the future.
The future.
The 382nd episode of the Misdirected Mark podcast, and we're going to be talking about character death. I'm Ghostman Logan.
I'm old man Phil.
And I'm oldish guy Chris.
Dude, if we hit episode 800, we'll be talking about player death, not character death.
No. Okay, so let's see. It's been 8 years.
Yeah,
This is episode 382.
right.
Mm-hmm.
We do about 50 of these a year.
Right.
On average.
Yeah. So,
So another 8 years. That'll be 8 years from now.
okay.
Bob will be retired. No, not yet. He'll be getting close.
Close.
Though. Yeah.
Yeah.
Close to retirement.
You'll be in your 60s, right? No, you'll be in your 50s,
Late
Yeah.
50s.
late 50s, and I'll be in my late 40s.
Yeah.
Man,
Yeah, oof. We're not gonna. I don't think we're making it to episode 800.
I feel like 500 is probably the stop.
I like 500's a cool number, man.
We'll see how we feel about it.
Yeah, 500's a cool number.
That's a cool number.
Yeah. Cool.
All right. Well,
Hey, we're gonna do our one thing for tonight. Bob, what's your one thing since we killed you?
Yeah, and I'm going to haunt your asses. You know that.
I figured.
So the new season of Rick and Morty does not disappoint. I'm only 2 episodes in. I know there's like 4 of them out
Oh,
already,
the
but
second episode's fantastic.
second episode is great.
Yeah.
But yeah, that show, they just keep hitting all those marks just perfectly.
Yeah. Shows. I love that show.
Jerry is such a doofus.
I know it's not. I know it's not season 4, but the running joke on the Minecraft server all the time
Oh,
is
yeah.
from Rick and Morty. So we'll just be sitting there. We'll be like, "Wait, so you mine stuff to craft, and then craft stuff to mine? Like, geez, Morty, did your dad invent this thing?"
hard.
But bum.
There's a video clip on There's a video clip on YouTube of all the times that Rick and Morty make fun of Minecraft. Oh, it's really funny.
Is it a lot?
It's more than you think, but it's a bunch of them center around the episode with the president, like when the president wants him to go, kill a bunch of stuff.
Oh, okay.
Morty just wants to play Minecraft. He doesn't want to do what the president wants. Mm-hmm. It's funny. Anyway, so yeah, Rick and Morty is good.
It is a very good show.
Chris, man, you've been watching something new.
I have. So there's this new show. It's not new. It's new this year. It's called Evil. It's on NBC. CBS. That's right. I caught up on the first 9
Definitely had to
episodes
see it.
because we have a TiVo and people have been recording it. So the 9 episodes.
I'm sorry, wait a
are there.
second. Do you have an actual TiVo?
Not a TiVo, whatever the direct
DVR.
DVR. Thank you. A DVR.
I was gonna say if you had an actual TiVo still, that would be like pretty badass. I had a TiVo in the day.
Yeah.
It was fucking amazing.
I mean the brand TiVo. It had
Yeah.
I had an actual
Yep.
honest to goodness TiVo.
What's the TiVo symbol? What's the TiVo icon?
It's a little TV with 2 little antenna and a smiley face out for the screen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's kind of adorable.
Yeah.
That's kind of super adorable. So, anyways, this show Evil. I love the cast. It's Mike Coulter. That's
Yeah,
Luke
that's
Cage.
Oof.
He's playing trying to be a priest. He's studying. He's in this.
That's probably the only flaw with the show is that Mike Coulter's going to be a priest.
Oh, yeah. It's
Does
really,
he still like coffee?
Yeah, does he still like?
So
I need to know.
To talk a little bit about the character at one point in time suffered from drug addiction and sex addiction, and that's one of the reasons why he's in trying to become a priest.
Oh well,
try
I'm
to-
more now. There's a plot arc.
Yeah, right. More interesting, right? I can never pronounce her name. Katja Herbers. She plays a psychologist who's there along with Mike Coulter as a priest who works for the Catholic Church, trying to debunk or prove that things are or are not real, like exorcisms and other supernatural occurrences or things that seem supernatural. And the show, if you watch it, it feels like a lot of the stuff in it is actually supernatural, but they always give a reason why it might not be. So, for instance, there's an episode where there's like a haunted Alexa, and there are some exorcisms that go on. They're pretty. I'm actually surprised this show's on CBS. Like, it's got some content to it that I was surprised by. And also there's Asif Mandev.
Asif Manvi, I believe,
thank
is
you.
there.
He plays a contractor that is like their tech specialist to like help debunk these things, and he's by far the more skeptical of all the people. And then Michael Emerson plays the bad guy. And the idea is that there are maybe evil demons from hell are organizing and trying to bring out the end of the world. Maybe. Regardless, there are supposedly an organization of 60 very, very bad people out there doing something.
Interesting. I am, of course, a fan of the Luke Cage Aquaman team up.
I mean, who wouldn't be?
Right? That's my favorite crossover.
Right?
Wait, am I the only one who's seen that?
They both have the same...
Am I the only one who's seen that?
No.
I thought they both were dating the same woman. I thought they had like a polycule thing going on.
I mean, if you want to include women in it, sure, it's fine.
No, I actually thought that was the thing.
Oh wait, did you think that was a real thing?
No, I thought like because the guy who's Momoa actually is has a girlfriend who's
All right,
polyamorous.
you're killing my joke, man.
Sorry, man. I thought you were being serious.
You're just killing my joke.
For a second, I thought actually that was that'd be pretty badass, actually. You know,
Commit to the bit.
I thought he was being serious.
That's what we do here. We commit
I
to the
didn't
bit.
signal properly. I didn't signal incoming joke. Sorry.
No, I didn't. Because it's actually a real thing.
Oh, it's it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. I was just gonna be like, the joke was, oh, am I the only one who's seen that? And I was like, wait, never
By the way,
mind.
it's pronounced Katya. Thank you, Avi.
There we go.
Appreciate it. Because I can't pronounce names for anything. I can read them like in my head, and they don't make any sense in real life. Because linguistics is hard. So that's my thing. What about you, Phil? What's your one thing?
So
Watch Evil. It's really good.
played some more Things from the Flood as our teens continue their mystery. It's actually gotten really intense. It's gotten intense enough that we actually had a conversation about it today about actually stopping playing. That while everyone loves the game and while everyone loves the depth of character, it's super dark and it's starting to have some bleed. And, people just weren't in the right place for it. So yeah, we're having an active discussion right now about talking about alternative games. And right now I have my eye on this game called Transit, which I'm super psyched about, that I would like to, I'm hoping people will be into.
Do tell me about Transit. What is it about? What do you do in the game?
Yeah, Transit's a PBTA game where you play AIs that have been implanted into starships and are carrying out missions. And so you are AI, part starship, and then like you have to also kind of like manage the crew, like your crew that's in your ship. Like you have like a little base of operations, and then you like expand out and explore sector, and like you do like all Star Trek-y things, except that like instead of playing like the captain and the away team, like you play the ship.
That's pretty.
There's a couple sci-fi shows that were like that. There was
Andromeda had a sentient ship.
Andromeda. I was trying to think of Andromeda had the sentient ship. There's also this really amazing book called Ancillary Justice. It was a Nebula winner like 5 or 6 years ago. That's also was about a ship AI. Yeah. So which is what got me excited about the idea for the game. And I wasn't even looking for another game, so I just had bought Transit. I was like, cool, I'm just going to read this because I'm super interested in it. And then like after it came up, it was like the guys were like, the game's really dark and heavy. We'd like to play something a little lighter. And I'm like, well, fuck, I don't have like a I don't have a
game sitting on the shelf.
Yeah, I don't
that you
have
can
something
play.
on the burner, and on top of it, right now I'm like super obsessed with this game. Like we're gonna have to just work through this. Like we're gonna have to play Transit for like a session or two, and
Playing 4 sessions of Transit to see if you like it.
yeah, see if it. I think I'm just gonna
session rule.
I think I'm just gonna put that out there. We're just gonna play a couple sessions of Transit and see if it gels, and if it doesn't, then it was like cool. I got it out of my system.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm a little sad because I really enjoy those characters, but the tone of Things from the Flood is very different than Tales from the Loop.
Yep.
It is a much darker, it is a very 90s grunge feel. And that first mystery, which they're like, oh, cool, it's, like you can play this mystery in 3 to 4 hours in a con session. And we're like 6 hours into this mystery and still have like room to go.
6?
We played like 3 sessions of it.
Yeah, we're in more than 6.
Yeah.
You don't play for 2 hours. You guys play for like 3, right?
Yeah, close. 2.5 to 3 hours. Yeah. So, but it we're like deep into this, and that like the players have like really internalized like the storyline for this.
Yeah.
So, it's good, and it's it's the kind of thing where like even if the game's going great, like people aren't in the headspace for it, and this is where this is practicing what we preach, right? We talk about safety, right?
Mm-hmm.
People like the game, but are kind of like emotionally drained from it.
Time to stop.
It's okay to stop.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and we may pick it up again. It may be the kind of thing that instead of playing a full-on campaign, we occasionally play a mystery. Like we don't have to, and maybe later we come back and everybody's okay with it, and maybe we never come back to it.
Maybe you don't.
It's okay. So anyway, that's my one thing.
Before we get to our announcements, I've made a terrible mistake.
Oh, no.
I was petting my cat earlier, and I just touched my eyes.
Oh, I was petting your cat before too.
Yeah, but I'm allergic.
Oh, that's probably a problem.
Yeah, that's okay.
He was a good boy. He fell asleep on me for a little bit.
He is a very good cat. I give him I give him a hard time, but he's a very
Podcat? He's a sweet
Podcat's very
guy.
good cat. His name's actually Chess. For those,
Yeah.
Those that don't know, I named my cat after a game, of course.
He met me at the top of the stairs.
Oh, he does that.
Mm-hmm.
He loves people. All right, let's do an announcement. Well, actually, we'll just go right to our ad spot.
Ad spot.
All right. Sir, sensors are picking up an unknown contact moving along Vector 215.
Hail them.
No response, Captain.
I am registering an unknown energy surge.
Ray Shields, evasive maneuver Panda 5.
Blast off for adventure with infinite galaxies.
Are you ready for some sci-fi action adventure? Robots, aliens, laser guns, starships, all of this and more can be yours.
Infinite Galaxies is powered by the Apocalypse. Is a Powered by the Apocalypse game based on favorites like Dungeon World and Apocalypse World, and includes new systems to promote high-velocity action.
Infinite Galaxies can be played using popular science fiction settings from literature, cinema, and television, and includes advice for those who want to create their own settings.
Infinite Galaxies is available on PDF and in print at Drive-Thru RPG and Indie Press Revolution. Check it out today and blast off for adventure.
Do. One day Ken and Robin are going to sue us for that. I can't wait for next week. I've got another opening.
Yeah, I had to kirk it up since you went Star Trek.
Yeah, I know. I'm trying like each week to like.
I'll do something different every time you pull something out.
But see, that's part of the thing about the game, right? Like the
Are
game
we not
is
doing
like
phrasing?
no, the game is about.
You got it.
The game is about like you can emulate different kinds of sci-fi. So I am in our ads emulating different types of sci-fi.
Bob, the problem is I didn't signal the joke.
Yeah, he didn't.
I didn't
You know what? I'm
signal
just
the
getting him
joke.
back for ruining my joke.
Yeah, I
earlier.
didn't signal the joke. You ready, buddy?
We got to
Is
send
your
up a
voice
flare every
warmed
time
up?
there's a joke coming in.
Oh wow, it is a workworkshop. Yes.
That's what you wrote, so I assume
Okay,
that's
hang
what
on.
it is.
Hang on. Clear the voice.
Me.
Yeah.
Here we go. 3, 2.
Workshop, death and loss, losing characters. What are you gonna do? How does the game survive? Don't worry, it's gonna be okay. Death and loss.
Don't suck. Don't suck.
Tonight we are going to talk about. Oh, well, sorry.
Yeah,
we
you
were
gotta
over
break
that
from
part.
that,
Yeah. I meant to say tonight we're going to talk about what we would normally consider a GMing 101 topic: character death and loss. But we want to come at it from that 200, 300 level and talk a little bit less about what to do when a character dies, and more about what happens on a number of different levels when a character dies. We have that layers thing that we utilize. So in order to do that, I'm going to ask my friend Phil here, my very good friend, the Definition Panda, to start us with a definition. So hit me up, Definition Panda.
Yeah. All right,
Oh,
character.
wait. I got it right
no,
here.
you could, sure.
Behold, you are in the presence of Definition Panda.
Thanks. That was like enough time for like one
That
more
thing
sip
is
of
so
coffee.
epic. That never
yeah.
gets old.
So character death or loss is pretty self-explanatory, right? It's when a character dies or is lost from the game and won't be able to participate in the session further. And to elaborate on that, what we really mean is they lose all narrative authority, right? So once a character dies, that character no longer has narrative authority in the game.
Yeah.
Okay, but death isn't the same in all games.
No, man. In some games like mid to high level D&D and Pathfinder, death is often countered with resurrection magic, which we,
Earlier.
talked about that.
Yep.
We still got
We should just play. You know what?
5,000.
We should have just house ruled. We should have house ruled the show not to use spell components.
We should have.
Then
but,
we would have been fine.
But then the gag wouldn't have worked. I mean,
But Bob would not be a bacon ghost.
Bacon Ghost Bob's the best Bob.
Bacon Ghost.
I want a T-shirt of Bacon Ghost Bob.
Bacon
now.
Ghost
Can
Bob.
somebody? I know we don't.
No,
have
we
a
don't do
lot
free
of-
art.
I don't. I know we don't. I mean, I'll pay for that.
Yeah, that's fine.
If you want to fan art up some of that, we'll talk about money coming to you like Rob. Anyways, by the way, in these cases, death is a temporary problem, and it's more of a resource issue at that point, right, buddy?
Is my phone making noises?
I think
It is.
so.
Sorry.
What were you doing?
We were about to groove, man.
Yeah, no.
No, I was gonna get done.
Alright.
We weren't about to groove. That was just left over from us playing Christmas carols.
Oh yeah.
No, my mom texted me. I was
Oh.
texting my mom. I was texting the one person, two people. One of the two people I would text back in the middle of the show. My mom was texting me about Christmas stuff. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
I was okay, but talk to me more about mid to high level D&D and Pathfinder.
You know how it's often countered with those resurrection magic in these cases. It's a temporary problem, more of a resource issue.
Yeah, exactly, right? Like it's not really character death. Like it's character death for like half a combat scene, right? And then like the combat scene ends and it's like, okay, well like resurrect Bob, he's fine.
Everybody at home, I just understood the actual purpose of show notes. It's so that Phil can not pay attention to me when he feels like it.
I
And then
know,
he can just jump back
I
in.
know where.
Because when I stop talking, that's when the colors switch.
Yeah, I know when to engage and when not to engage. I thought I had a
man.
few seconds to tell my mom I was podcasting.
No,
Sorry,
that's okay. No, it's not.
I'm a
big
good
deal.
son.
I know you are.
Okay. Anyway, the thing we want to talk about tonight is games that don't have a way to reverse death, right? So where death is a permanent state.
A permanent state.
Yes. And we also need to consider that we need to consider death is not the same in all games, and not even in the same game. Like inside the game, as you advance in power, death is not exactly the same.
No, because death in low-level D&D is more prevalent than in higher-level games. And if you're not playing an Adventurous League game, then it's harder to resurrect a character. In fact, you might as well just roll up a new one.
Yeah, like and I mean, just to jump in because I didn't write this in here, but in DCC, like in the funnel, like it's expected.
Yeah. People
Like-
are going to die.
Right. Like you get 4 or more characters because they're going to die.
When we talk about, there's questions later, and there's a question about if death is always relevant, or should it always be relevant, like when somebody dies and whatnot. And I have an answer that is game related
Okay.
to that because of it really does depend on what the tone and feel of the game is.
I agree.
All right, there's still more.
Yeah, you can do the next
Oh, that's
part.
right. It's the next part, isn't it? So the death and fate, right?
Yep.
That is very different because death and fate is the decision of the person who took the character. Like if you're playing a character, you get to choose whether you die or not when you get taken out.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, that's more of a which actually brings us to something about planned versus unplanned death, right? So in some games, people know when they're going to die, or sometimes it's a decision that's made in conjunction with the GM. Like sometimes, like somebody will be leaving town.
It's either you know you're going to take yourself out of the game because you're leaving town, or
Yeah.
you're going to die, or you're not you don't know that it's coming, but when it does come, you're like, at least you have a choice about it.
Right, but there's even like what is it in Cartel? At least in the playtest that I played a few years ago, the failure for you get shot is that the GM will tell you when you die.
Yeah.
Right, so you know it's going to happen, but the GM kind of gets to decide like, is it right away? Does it does it persist for a couple
Yeah,
scenes?
there are like, we just talked about 3 different versions of this.
Yeah, yeah. So so there's planned death, right? And like we said, that's often when a character is kind of working with the GM to know that they're going to go out.
Sure.
And maybe the whole table isn't aware, but for sure, like the player knows. Okay.
Of course, there's the other side of that, which is, unplanned death,
Yeah.
right? So this is when death comes as a shock, usually from the outcome of random dice, or a choice that you weren't expecting to make that you ended up making.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, right? Like, well, now you're dead. Like, and that's very different, right?
Yeah,
Like,
people aren't often prepared for that.
no,
It
no,
just-
it's because it's based on the randomness of the dice. It's, it's one of those things where it's like, well, we're playing Savage Worlds. I'm the GM. I rolled a hit.
I exploded my dice 17 times.
I exploded my dice 17
That's what I
times.
mean,
Yeah,
yeah.
I exploded my dice like 17 times. We're all just sitting in horror.
Well, I just took 17 wounds.
Right. Yeah, and you're not going to Benny your way out of this.
No, you're dead.
Exactly.
Nobody explodes their dice 17 times.
Yeah.
The most I've ever heard of was a D4 exploding 11 times.
Oof, that's a lot.
44 is a lot of damage.
That's it's a ridiculous. amount.
44 is you got chibbed. Is that the right, like the, when you get exploded from like a
Pink mist. I like
pink mist?
mist.
I don't know. That's
just
jibbed. Jibbed. That's what it was.
Jibbed.
I don't know why they call it.
Oh, is that from
Giblets.
Giblets?
I don't
That's
know, I'm
why.
guessing.
Yeah, that's why. That's the shorter version of giblets. Yeah.
Gotcha. All right, cool.
So let me ask you a question.
You.
What happens when somebody dies then?
Yeah, right. So, if you've been listening to the show, you're aware of our layer model. If not, we just revisited a couple of episodes ago. So, death has an effect on multiple layers in the game. So, what's the most obvious one?
The most obvious one is the character layer, right? So
Yeah.
when a character dies, they're out of that character layer. That character doesn't exist anymore. At least not in a way that can affect the story. They have no agency.
Yeah, yeah. Like you no longer access the game through that character.
Correct.
Yeah.
If there are other ways for you to access the game as a player, it's not that.
Yep. So then another layer that gets affected by a character death is the group layer, right? At the group layer, the dynamic of the group has been disrupted. So one, it gets disrupted on an emotional level. Like character loss can have an emotional effect on surviving characters.
Yeah, I can.
Right? That is absolutely a thing. And the dynamic of the group is now changed. Whether anyone wants it to be or not, once that character is gone, even if the player, and even because they're probably going to make a new character, even if they make a new character that's almost like the other character, it's different. Right? It's absolutely different. So emotionally, the group takes, there's a ripple in the group. But also functionally, the group takes a change, right? Because the dead character removes a certain set of skills and abilities, powers from the game, notable exception, headspace, right? Where you get to keep one.
Sure.
Okay. But anyway, when that skill set drops out of the game, it causes a disruption for how the group normally solves problems. And then when the player, like if a player makes a new character, unless they make like an exact one, like you lost the wizard and they make a wizard, right? And they like take all the same spells. Then like in any case other than that, then the group has to change up how they get things done.
They do.
And that's work for the group.
Let's talk about this. Can we take a second
Yeah,
to talk about this
absolutely.
from a couple different points of view?
Yeah, good.
So if you have a character that dies let's talk about Dungeons and Dragons first. Even if you make a character that has the same class, if they have a different background, it's still functionally a different character.
Absolutely.
mean-
And most likely the player's not going to want to make the same character.
That's true. Even if they make the same background, they're probably not the same exact character. The best thing that you can get is closest to is like somebody who's related to that person. But even then, that's still a shift for how they function.
Yeah.
Because backgrounds in the newest edition of the game have skills and story beats and whatnot that are different from other backgrounds.
Yeah.
So that's kind of it's a thing, right?
Yeah, the likelihood is when a character dies, the player who's playing them is like, I'm gonna try something different, right? Like,
yeah.
I was the wizard for like 3 years. You know what? I'm gonna take my hand at monk.
That's a huge shift.
That's a
That
well
is
for the
a
group.
huge
It's a huge
shift
shift,
for the
right?
group. I mean.
Yeah, for the group, it's like, well, we just lost like
You've gone from spellcasting to physical fighting for the most part.
right.
'Cause
How
if
you solve problems is
Yep.
going to be different.
If you flip to being a warlock or a sorcerer, it's not as big of a
it's not as
deal.
big of a deal.
Bard's a little bit more of a shift, as is like cleric or paladin. Like those are very big shifts.
Yep.
I mean, they're still sort of spellcasters, but not exactly the same kind of spellcaster.
Yeah, and I mean, so we're talking about it in the negative way, but let's also talk about it in the cool way. So if you're playing a game, maybe less like D&D where you're into classes.
Well, let
but-
me talk about the cool thing about D&D, because I want to talk about the bad thing for other games that are more about characters and drama and things like that. Not that D&D can't have that, but the mechanics don't facilitate
Sure.
that. But the cool thing about in a game, in a similar game to D&D, is that when you have this new person come in, it's a new chance to figure out a whole bunch of new group dynamics.
Yes.
Like how do how do our tactics work together? How do our backgrounds interplay with the story that's proceeding forward?
How do we relate to each other?
Yep. How do we relate to each other? And then when you get to a game, let's talk about some more story-based games. I guess that's the wrong. I don't know what to call them. Games that are more about character drama
It's okay.
than less about character
Sure.
drama. When you remove a character like that, then you've cut out some part of the storytelling that existed beforehand.
Well, we're going to get into the story layer in just a second.
Yeah, but isn't that like the same thing for like the functional? If the rules are surrounding that,
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, you may have lost bonds.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you may have had, and I want to avoid story layer because there's other story things that get related.
what
to
happens when I pull a character out? Like, say, like somebody has to like leave town,
Yeah,
and I'm playing a drama system game, and that character's gone.
yeah, because you lose part of the web.
Yes.
Yes.
That's the kind of thing.
That's
I'm getting at.
mechanically that is a problem, right? You've
functionally,
lost.
that's a very different thing.
Right, and the new player is going to oh yeah, you're right. If a player leaves town, right, you're not only losing the character, you're losing the player, and that if we wanted to have a sequel, or if we want to talk about it
If we
towards
wanted
the
to
end,
continue playing that game.
right? That actually losing a player marks a fundamental shift in the game.
Mm-hmm.
Like losing a character is a disruption, like it's a ripple.
Yeah.
But losing a player, like a player moves away, goes to college, gets a new job or something, like that disruption is way more significant because it's not only the character, but now there's actually maybe no one's taken that place.
That's true.
Or somebody new is taking that place, and not only do you have to contend with a new character being inserted, the group, the people. We're going to talk about people layer all the way
Yeah.
at the end, but the people will have to deal with a new person in the group.
Well, since we're talking about group layer and functional stuff at the moment, pulling a character out of a drama system game and inserting a new character is a big change. One, all of those threads that were there tied to that old character, what do you do? Like, then we look at soap operas and we see how like that happens, which is a good example for it. But really, there are loose threads that need to eventually be tied off, and they're actually good ways to end stories.
It may signal the end of a story.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes we see that in TV too, right? Like the death of the death of a main character sometimes means like, well, we're putting all of these subplots to rest. Like if you look at not that it's a great example, but in Star Trek Next Generation, when Tasha Yar
dies?
right? But what happens is all the stories relating to Tasha Yar, like her background, the potential relationship with Data, and things like all of that just gets shit canned.
Yeah,
right? The writers are just like, well, not doing this anymore, and they just kind of like they do a couple episodes about Data dealing with the loss, but they're basically like, you can't advance these, like throw them out.
Yeah, but you're right about the thing, like, what do you do with them, right? You can just do what essentially Star Trek did, which I don't think that show did a very good job of wrapping those up emotionally.
No, they totally didn't, right? Like they were.
That was one of the big
show was-
complaints for a long time.
Right, the show was early on. The writing wasn't so great. They suffered a massive loss in cast, and they just barreled through it, right?
And you can do that with your games.
Yeah.
That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But there are other ways you could do that
Right.
that are
Which
better.
is fine because ultimately within a season, the show is completely fine. Like like they move up Worf into that spot.
Yep.
Like the writers get better, so Worf becomes like a much better character, right? Like, and it's fine, and the show persists, and like the campaign doesn't collapse.
Correct.
Right. Okay, we should move on because we're brushing up against some of the other ones.
Well, let's talk about story.
Yeah, talk about story layer. What? So we're in the middle of a game.
Story of a game. We were just actually talking about that.
Yeah, we're in the-
we were
good.
talking about the functional and sort of emotional level at the group level, but at the story layer, like it's time to do a 360 or a 180 or some sort of turn here.
270, a
Yeah.
90, a couple 45s.
Deaths are very strong downbeats in stories. They're downers. Now, you got to deal with that in some way.
Well,
shape, or
let's
form.
be clear. Character death is a downbeat.
Yeah.
Villain death is an upbeat.
Sure.
Well, honestly, the potential exists for you to do a character death that's not really a downbeat.
It's always a downbeat, but if you have a heroic sacrifice that is a part of it, there's
Yeah.
an upbeat right along with it.
Yeah.
So it actually
It kind of
cancels.
balances.
They balance each other out.
Yeah.
But even then, they can be downbeats.
Yeah.
And you have to deal with them, right?
In the middle of the story.
In the middle of the story. This isn't the end of a story.
Yeah.
Usually that thing right there, that could be the end of a campaign, or the end of a story arc.
Yeah.
And then, but still, at the beginning of the next story arc or the continuing of the campaign, you have to do something about it. You have to deal with the fact that there's been loss. The other thing about death is it has the potential of derailing the rest of the story, especially if it was unexpected and not wanted.
Yeah.
I mean, that goes to having that session zero discussion, things like that. But if in case it happens, that's what we're talking about. What happens when this happens? Surviving characters, they might do different things after that point. And I will give a prime example in about 2 seconds once I'm done with this. And they might come up with a new objective. They might even leave. Now, I know we were talking about what happens if characters die. It's like a permanent thing. I was running a 4th edition game, and a character unexpectedly died in like the second story arc.
Yeah.
And it was the first story arc, near the end of the first story arc, but we played like 6 sessions, 4 hours each. That's 24 hours of play. That's a lot of play. That's a lot of time to get to know a character. They went from level 1 to 3. And then at the end of that arc, one of the characters died unexpectedly. They turned and were like, we're going to do everything we can to resurrect this person.
Yeah. Your whole campaign, like you're just like, pick up these notes.
Yeah, I'm going to put these off to the side until they're done with this thing that I wrote a new thing for.
Yep.
And they went to the underworld to get this person.
Yeah. And that's what now that's a campaign layer thing. We're going to talk about that. But even in the middle of a story, like if you have a story where it's like we're going to break into Baron von Badass's stronghold, we're going to go.
That is the copyright of Fear the Boot.
Yes.
We don't want to get sued.
And we're gonna go kick his ass. And halfway through the adventure, one of the character dies. Like the group might be like, shit, we might be in over our heads on this.
Time to leave.
Time to leave.
Especially
and you're like,
depending on which character it was.
right.
Like if you need your frontline fighter for a key piece of this assault and the frontline fighter goes down early, all of a sudden you're like, well, that's not happening now.
Exactly. So
So look, our wizard died that had the ritual that we needed to open the gate so that we
Yeah.
could go where we needed to go inside of this place.
right. So this story that you're playing, and this is even worse if you're in a convention setting. Oh yeah. Right? Like if the players suddenly are like, wait, we can't do this. Now you're like, well, we're 2 hours into our 4-hour session. I guess we're going off the grid now, right? You know,
I want to preface that some of the things and examples we just provided are examples of things that you shouldn't do in your games anyway, as far as like setting things up. Like, you should never have a character be the lock key to the next.
Yes.
Never-
No one character should be the linchpin
The
for any.
wizard is carrying a stone
Yeah.
that opens the gate. Somebody picks up the stone, and the game continues.
But in case somebody is screwed up in a situation where they've made it so that that is how it's going to go.
The bigger cases, the bigger challenge is when the players panic, right? Because if the players were like, well, we're going to roll up on Baron von Badass, and in second encounter they lose like their frontline person, they're like, wait, this place is way tougher than we thought it was. And then are like, we should get out of here.
Let's go leave, run around the castle, grind up some
Right.
random
And you're
encounters,
like-
level up a few times and go back in.
Yeah, so now you have to deal with that. Okay, so cool. So that's the story layer disruption. The campaign layer, right? Because again, these layers are all like brushing up against
I'm
each
sorry, you just described like so much of my childhood playing JRPGs.
Yeah, exactly,
Like,
right?
walked
I just
into
got
the
my ass
castle,
handed to me.
Oh, let's go grind.
It's time to grind. Yeah, absolutely. That was Baldur's Gate for me.
Yeah, right.
Like I'm gonna
There
go
you
play every side adventure until I can whip the main storyline's ass. Like
Come here, ball.
that's okay. The campaign layer is then also affected, right? The death of a character affects campaign. It immediately affects the ongoing arc. If the character had their own arcs, they had personal arcs and stuff like that, all of those are now ending early. Which in one case, because the player's gone, you just remove the arc. But if those arcs were really compelling,
The other players might be like, hey,
Exactly.
let's keep going with that. And
if they can,
if they
right?
can, yeah.
Like if, or just sometimes the players just wanted to see it resolved. Like, well, no, it's not really going to get resolved. Like, but yeah, so we've said this in many shows and panels, right? We've warned about this. Like, don't make anybody a key point of an arc or a campaign, because if they die, and you like jam up your arc, like this happened
I
to you.
did that with Mike's character Numenera.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden, like
We were playing Dungeon World.
I mean, it turned out like history-wise, that turned out to be.
But no, that was a killer for the campaign.
Yeah, we killed a campaign by accident. So like the loss of a character can do these things.
By the way, I've learned a great deal from that experience. Now, if I ever have campaign lines, so like my Eberron game that Bob is going to be joining, there are a couple of different story arcs that are going on in it, and they're related. They were tied pretty intently to certain characters, but I did it to multiple characters.
I mean,
I'd have to lose.
got some redundancy in there.
Yeah, I created redundancy. That's one way to solve that problem.
Yeah.
Also, making it more group focused instead of character focused is a way to do it too.
Yep.
But if you really want that character specific story arc stuff, make it redundant if it's important to the overall campaign. That's a good tip. Also, making it group specific is a good tip too.
Yeah, it's definitely a thing, and it's luckily for you as a GM, the campaign ramifications are a thing you will handle outside of the game.
Yeah.
Like you will, like the session will end, you will sit down and
You'll
be
go
like,
scramble. And
Yeah,
be
you'll be
"Okay,
like,
what do I do?
I have to scramble, but I have time to scramble.
Uh-huh.
The story one is a much more perilous moment because you are in the middle of a session having to deal with that.
Yeah, scrambling in story is a little bit more perilous.
Yeah.
It might even be a perilous journey.
How about the player layer? Because there's some shit that goes on at the player layer.
Yeah, I mean, there's the death of a character is gonna mess, with the player at times. I know I've been like, oh, I died. Also, I know when that thing I was talking about, that 4th edition game happened, everyone was like, oh.
Yeah, like I mean, there's a player chill.
Yeah. And that could be a sense of loss, right? Like, well, now what do I do? How am I gonna? Do I get to keep playing? Do I have to make a new character? How do they?
Especially if there was already a significant amount of investment by that player in that character. Like we've gone through some stuff, and I love this guy, and all of a sudden it's like, holy crap.
There for me was a tipping point with Core, where no, not Core. Core's my
You're talking about your barbarian.
that was my barbarian. I'm talking about Dungeon World.
Yeah, you're talking about the cold.
Yeah.
Corin.
Corin
the Cold.
Corin the Cold.
Yes. There was a tipping point with Corin where in the beginning, I was like, well, I'm riding this thing like I stole it. Like, if he dies, right? And then I think when his character arc kicked in with the Queen of Hoarfrost and Woe, then I was like less cool about the thought of him dying.
I know, especially
wait
when you
a
fought
minute.
the 7th greatest swordsman, one of the 7th
I was
greatest
a
swordsmen
little
in the world.
nervous about the 7th greatest swordsman in the world, and I thought I had fucked up.
You rolled black gates.
I did roll play games.
You
And-
both killed each other.
Yeah, and I, yes, we did. Only one of us got back up from it.
Yeah.
But at that moment, I was like, fuck. Like, I was like, when I fought the Waverin and got electrocuted by the lightning.
Gakkus the lightning hand.
Yes, Gakkus lightning hand. I was like, I'm fucking invincible, right? Like, I was like, whatever, because if I had died, I had just died. I was like, that was fairly early in the campaign.
It was.
But when I faced the 7th greatest swordsman, that was late in the campaign,
There was
and
like 3 or 4 sessions left.
I was hoping, because I was riding a +3, that I was going to hit a significant enough hit to not get killed, but I didn't. And then, luckily for me, Barbarians get a +1 on Black Gates, and I rolled enough to get back to Earth.
Yeah, you did.
But anyway, if I had lost them that late in the campaign, like, I don't know if I could have ever recovered enough for the campaign. Like, having a character come in that late in the third act, like my investment would have been significantly curbed. And I don't know as a player how I would have, I don't know if it was, I would have done the part because I would have definitely wanted to see the end of the campaign, but it would not have had the same feels for me.
Yep.
And that's tough. Like, that's a tough thing to contend with. And it was legitimately a thing that, like, the fact that he died because he got a 7 to 9 on that roll was completely legitimate. That was exactly that's exactly what the 7th grade swordsman does. You know, if you didn't get him on a full 10 plus, he's going to kill you. And I think you set that up, actually. You didn't even, that move, I knew what that move was when I picked up the dice. I knew the stakes, but I don't know if I would have ever, I don't know, my investment in that campaign would have never been the same afterwards. I would have made another character, and I would have been there for the end of the game, but it would have been weird. The best I could have hoped for would have been to take one of the NPCs from town. Like the other adventuring party.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. Corin would have came back in a session anyway because his soul would have been in the mountain somewhere.
Right.
Because that was how that worked.
Well, I didn't know that.
I know you didn't, but that if I would have told you, it would have mattered then. Like,
well, it would have been worse because then I would have definitely ridden him more like a.
Yeah.
But
that's my point.
Yeah, but that's a thing, right? Like, that's like, I would have, if I died, I would have needed a few minutes, like, to kind of cope with that. I mean, that would have happened if we had lost someone in Things from the Flood. Like, there would have been the game would have halted. Like, we would have absolutely came to a grinding halt.
So there we go. That's the first half of what we're talking about.
Yeah. So that's looking at death through different layers. We're going to take a break. We're going to check in with the chat room. I got to get out my phone real quick. We're going to Schwazi for who's going
to do the ad.
Yeah, who's going to do who's going to do the Misdirected Mark part?
Oh yeah, the Misdirected Mark part.
Yeah, so let me.
So we could talk about a show on Misdirected Mark. We're going to Schwazi live on.
Okay.
Live Schwazi.
Live Schwazi.
And who's going to do it? Who's going to do it?
It's me.
It's Chris. Okay, Chris is going to do the. Is Chris going to talk about another show on the Misdirected Mark Network?
Yeah, I am. So there's this wonderful interview show on Misdirected Mark Productions called The Lounge, where Doc Pallinger, my good friend Jesse Edmonds, he finds the best, the brightest, and the most fun game designers and sits down to have a very cool conversation with them. And you're never going to know what's going to happen in the lounge. And I love how Jesse does it because he rolls into his interviews. It's I forget he's taken that style from a couple of different podcasters, but he'll start recording, and then the beginning of that episode is somewhere in that him just chatting with the person.
I had such a fun time with it. I still remember when I did mine with Doc, and we were just talking about 80s Marvels comics.
Yep.
And it was great.
Keep an ear out because at some point in the future there is an interview with me.
Wow.
There's a Bob interview in there.
Nice.
I remember.
Did you two talk about comics too?
I honestly don't remember all of the stuff that we talked about. That we may have hit comics at some point.
I got it.
You got this?
Yeah. Prepping games is hard.
Ouch! There's got to be a better way.
Well, you could read this. You could read this book, Never Unprepared.
But that's hard on the eyes.
But reading is hard.
Ow,
Ouch!
my eye strain.
If I could only listen to Never Unprepared.
But wait a minute, you can.
You can.
Yes, on Audible.
Audible.com?
Audible.com. It has Never Unprepared, the complete Game Master's Guide to Session Prep.
By Phil Vecchione?
Although I can't remember the name of the guy who read it.
I know, because we didn't write any more ad copy. So you should go to audible.com and download Never Unprepared and listen to it today.
We suck.
What just happened? That was pretty good, except for that last part.
Yeah, we ran out of material.
Oh, man.
Man, we need a fucking marketing intern, man.
So
we should just not market
We have
ourselves.
we have a position open for a marketing intern to help us with our show notes and make sure the right ad copy is in
Oh
there.
my god, we really need a marketing.
Hey man, I wrote the intro. It was pretty good.
No, the intro was. We wrote the intro. We wrote nothing for that. That was just us being us. Because Colby Elliott,
Thank you, Colby Elliott. Colby Elliott, your voice is like straight butter.
Oh
by
man,
the way.
when I listened to, because I wrote that book, right?
Yeah.
So in my head, that book sounds a certain way to me, and then like
Not
I heard
anymore,
Colby
does it?
read it, and I was like, nope, that's better. Like
Not
that's
anymore,
that's
doesn't.
better than my voice reading it. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Is there anything in the chat room, Bob?
I definitely have something I know I have to address.
Apparently, I was supposed to say something, but I must have said it, so I don't know what it was.
You're supposed to say something?
Oh, good. We're all set there.
I think we're good.
Okay. Somebody wanted me to bring up Action Movie World, where there's actually a role when your character dies. Because here's the thing in Action Movie World.
Yes.
In Action Movie World, everyone except the lead dies.
Yes.
So there's assistant director roles.
Or can die, right? They don't have to die.
Well, they basically tell you everybody else dies.
Oh, okay.
Really, what's supposed to happen is everyone else dies, and only the lead finishes like the final combat, because the lead is the only character that can kill the big bad guy.
Yeah,
None of
yeah.
the supporting cast can.
Yep.
So everybody else is supposed to die and have a heroic moment, because there's a move in the game for when someone dies, like you get benefits from it. Anyway, what Action Movie World does then is it has these assistant director roles where you can influence a part of the game. It distributes a small chunk of the GMing role to the players that have died. And it gives you like a couple different roles. So like if you're the stunt coordinator, you can suggest stunts to the players. And if they take one of your suggested stunts, they get like a +1 at it.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so it's fun. Like what it addresses is it addresses the player level problem, which is the character died, right? They're out of the story.
How do I interact with the game, though?
Right, but they give the player something to do, and that's actually something we didn't talk about before the break. If you die in the middle of a session, what do you do?
Yeah, exactly.
Like-
I think you should check the rule, though. I'm pretty sure the rule is you can die. You don't have to die.
Okay,
It's just the lead can't die.
right. Yeah, I don't think you have to murder everyone, but it doesn't matter who gets the only person that matters that getting to the end
Is the lead, because the lead can actually die.
Yeah. The lead is the only person who can't die.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is a thing at the player level. When you die mid game,
What do you do?
what do you do? Like the answer is most times you roll up a new character. But rolling up a new character while everyone else is playing
Is not fun.
kind of sucks, right? Like because there's things you're going to want to ask the other players, but they're playing the game, right? And then if they do actually make their character before the game's over, they're going to want to insert it. And now as the GM, you're like, I got to find an insertion point in this story where I can jam in a brand new character, like in Act 3, and I'm going to have to slow the game down because they have to integrate with them, right?
Insert, jam, integrate. I think we're still doing phrasing.
I'm thesaurusing.
Thesaurusing?
Yeah, I'm trying. So the point being is that like you have like the player, you have to like as a GM, you may actually have to figure out what to do with the player now that they don't have a character. So maybe you distribute some of the GM load to them, right? Like
Yeah, maybe you do.
maybe you're like, hey, you know what? You play the monsters tonight. You could do that.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with distributing some of that GM load to people.
I tried to let that one go, but you didn't want to let it go. I mean, you should get consent first.
I mean, you should get consent first.
You
That
should
should
get
be a discussion that you have during session 0.
Yes.
I mean, you can have a consent discussion right there.
You can.
Just because
absolutely.
you have a discussion of consent 0 does not mean you have consent
I
at the
mean,
moment.
yeah, you can always re-up. You can always go back to the session 0 discussion or the consent.
It never
discussion.
hurts to reaffirm consent.
Yeah,
That is definitely like a.
but I mean,
Would you like some of the GM load?
I'm a pretty big fan of giving out some of the GM load. It works out pretty well.
Okay, I meant workload, but sure.
That's what I was talking about. What
Yeah.
you're talking about.
Okay.
So Action Movie World GM loads and distributing them.
And insertion points.
Yeah, and insertion points. We're going back to the show now. Is that really a thing?
Did we lose? I mean, have we gone too far into the?
I mean, welcome back. Now that we have talked about all the ways that you can distribute GM loads and how character death affects the game, we can talk about how to deal with the layers. So, would you like to ask the first question?
I sure would.
I guarantee it has nothing to do with GM load.
At the character level, not all deaths in a game are the same. How do we know when a death is significant, or are all deaths significant?
So, personally, I think the game and tone will help define the significance of death. You mentioned DCC earlier.
Yeah.
Also, where you are in the gameplay matters quite a bit too. Because early on in DCC, it doesn't mean jack. Later on in DCC, it means a whole lot.
Yeah, I would say, having now played like 2 funnels, in the beginning part of a funnel, death means absolutely nothing. Pick up another character off the pile on the table and keep going. But when you get close to the end of the funnel, these are likely your first level characters. There is a little sense of loss. Like when we played The Sunless Sea, Jerry had a character that we were all rooting to live.
And then he died.
And then he died at like almost the last minute of the thing. And we were like, oh no. Like the barrister, wasn't it?
I think it was either the barrister or...
I think it was
I think it was the barrister.
I think it was the barrister.
But there's scenarios that come up that, you know, you're the first couple of combats, you're like, oh, guy died, whatever, and you move on. But you get through, and it's like the what was it, the beggar guy.
Oh my God, I loved your beggar.
He was like totally reluctant to do anything, but he'd like, fine, and he'd pick up a sword that fell from like a bad guy or whatever, and run into the fray, whatever.
He was like the accountant in the Untouchables.
Yeah, and it was like, you know, by the end I was like, man, I kind of hope this guy makes it through.
Yeah, and if he doesn't, it's not a huge loss because you haven't had that much investment, but you're like, I kind of want, like, I'm trying not to say, like, in the DCC game we're playing right now, there are a couple characters that I'm like, I really want these characters to make it, like, into first level, but I don't want to say what they are because, 1, I don't want to put any jinx on them, and 2, I don't want to, like, telegraph anything, so I'm, like, being very quiet about it, but there are a handful of characters where I'm like, oh, I hope these guys make it to first level. Like, just, because in DCC, character death after the funnel is different. So when you hit 0 hit points in DCC, when you're a 0 level character, dead. No saving throw, no rolls, no nothing. But there are mechanics in the main DCC rules for characters first level and beyond where you can save a character who hits 0 hit points for a number of turns equal to something plus their level.
Okay.
And even if that doesn't work, if you can go back and find the body, there's a % roll that they weren't really dead.
Oh, that's
They were just unconscious.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I like that.
So the game actually has a couple things where it's like, no, like there's ways to get that, like there's ways to try to keep that character going.
Okay.
But in the funnel, it's like, no, you 0 dead. Like I actually, in this game, because there's a reason for it, every time somebody dies, I take a red marker and I write dead on it and like put it in a pile on the table. There's some things around that. Anyway, so I think you're right.
Also, let's kick it up to some different games. What, Death and Fate?
Death and Fate's a big deal.
It's also it's a lot different because you just can't die.
You have to decide.
Yeah, you have to decide. That is I think I'll just go with that's the rule. I don't know offhand. I thought maybe if you get taken out and the game master gets to choose your fate, then you don't actually have a choice.
Right.
But you can always fold before that happens.
You can concede the fight. You can always get out.
If you concede, then you choose what happens to you. If you don't concede and you get taken out, they choose what happens to you. So they can actually kill you. It's the GM's choice.
They can.
But they don't have to.
But it's pretty significant because that's not a game about killing characters. And I think they even talk about that in the rules. There are many things you can do when you have taken out a character. You can capture them. You can...
There's a lot. Yeah, there's a whole list.
Yeah, so to choose to kill a character is a significant moment in a Fate game.
Paranoia death is not significant?
No. God, no. It is... So in old school Paranoia, death was significant at Clone 5. Because 5 and 6 were your last 2, but other Paranoia games now allow you to buy additional 6-packs.
Yeah.
Which now, I don't know, I'm of mixed feelings about that because there was something about trying to hang on to your last clone and get to the debriefing that was nerve-wracking.
See, the thing is, the game should be about, if you're going to play multiple sessions with the same character, if you get to clones 5 and 6 and you lose them, then you don't get a chance to buy your next 6-pack because you're all dead.
I mean, it's possible, right?
That would be I think that would be the fun way, because then once you get to that,
Yeah,
once you get to the
at 5
debriefing,
you buy a 6-pack, right?
Yeah.
So that you have clones 6, 7, and on.
I'd be like, well, look, we can't really buy our 6-pack until we get to our debriefing.
Oh man, did somebody put Phoenix Dawn Command in?
Yeah, Phoenix-
Wow.
Death is very important in that game. In fact, that's the only way to level up.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you
Good
get
reference.
more powerful by dying.
Yeah.
That seems counterintuitive, but hey.
But yeah, so there are significant deaths and there are insignificant deaths. And I guess what we're saying,
It's too bad that game isn't as good as it could be, because it's a really cool concept.
I guess what we're saying about significant of character death, it has a lot to do with investment. How invested is the character into the story? Because even the premise of the game will tell you how much you should invest in your character. Like in Paranoia, how much should you invest into your character? Very little, right? The game is pretty clear about that. Like,
I mean, you play that game for laughs anyway.
yeah, but like in D&D, everybody knows in early D&D, don't get too cozy with these characters.
Oh, see, I've never played No Country for Old Kobolds. I didn't know that in order to spawn new kobolds, you have to have a character die.
Oh, I think I knew. I haven't played it, but I think I've heard that before. So yeah, so I think that there's a lot to do with the more invested people are in a character, the more significant it is. But I think the more story time you've had with the character, the greater the impact.
Also, the whatever the mechanics of the game are for surrounding the character.
Yeah, I mean, I think games have a certain conceit to how to treat death. Again, early level D&D, like good luck, but like higher level D&D.
Actually, I don't think at higher levels, if you started a character at higher level, it matters as much, because you just played. You started the character at 13th level. Who cares?
Yeah, exactly. Well, again,
it's because you were talking about story time.
Again, we're talking about time played, right?
I think time with a character is one of the axes.
Yeah.
And then mechanics of play will help drive some of that time with the character.
Yeah, I mean, if you're playing a super deadly game, whatever it is, and you've played your character for 30 sessions, you're invested. Even if you know you shouldn't be, you are.
Yeah.
You can't not be.
Yeah, time with the character is probably the number one.
I agree. I think that's probably the number one reason.
To whether character death is really, and there could be, and maybe that time could be shortened if there are a lot of important things that happen along the way with that character.
If they've cheated death, that often.
Whatever it is, like
Yeah.
if they found a great love, saved the kingdom.
Yeah, if they've had any significant story.
Yeah.
So the GMable portion of this advice is that even if your game is slanted towards character, towards casual character death, your players may still get invested in a character, and you will still have to deal with the player level issues of what happens when a character dies. Even if the game is rigged up so that at story and at group level, the group's okay. Like in Paranoia, you're perfectly fine no matter who dies, right? Like anyone can finish the mission. Preferably, if you're doing the game correctly, only one of you finishes the mission. But if you have if you have a game like that, and you've played a bunch, even if everybody knows, like, oh yeah, I'm not supposed to, invest heavily in this character, and they die, they'll still feel it. You still are going to have to deal with that. That's the GMable piece of that.
It is.
Yeah.
Very much so.
Cool. Ask another question.
Where we have the
Group player.
The group player question. We've only got to the question 2. What time is it? It's only 9 o'clock.
Yeah, you were fine.
At the group layer, what tips do we have for helping with the emotional and functional change?
Right? Because now we're talking about the rest of the characters who survived.
Yeah, I think it's important to give a mourning period and closure to the character's death.
Yeah, I do too.
If you don't do that, then you are doing the thing we talked about with Tasha Yar. And they even did that a little bit, but not as much as they could have.
If there was a significant investment.
Sure.
If it's one of those things where everybody's like, oh, man, it's a shame so-and-so died, and everybody just kind of shrugs, I think you're good.
Well, here, let me hit you with a different group level emotional and functional change. So functional, probably not too much in most cases, although if your party was needed to be the balanced party and you lost somebody, you're in a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, then you need to like the group needs to have a discussion about like
Like, what do
do
we
we
do?
do?
Yeah.
We're missing tools from our toolbox.
We lost our space pilot.
How do we? Can anybody fly the ship?
Right,
Yeah.
like
Well, I can. How good are you at it?
right. I got a
Yeah.
2 in it.
Let's go find a pilot.
Yeah, which you know could lead you to your next story.
The other thing, we talk about emotional stuff from the emotional change from like, oh, we lost that character, like that's sad. You can also play on other emotions with character death, like, oh look, we're in the middle of a zombie apocalypse. It's horrific that somebody just got ripped apart.
Yeah,
So you can use these deaths for tone setting and setting stakes in the future.
you can also reflect it back onto like in a game like that zombie apocalypse thing. You could be like, well, that person like fell and died. Like that could happen to you.
Also, somebody getting ripped apart by a bunch of ghouls in front of you in a Call of Cthulhu game will cause you to have sanity problems.
Absolutely.
And maybe cause you to take temporary madnesses or whatnot,
Sure.
or be in the future have issues with ghouls if you see them again.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. If cultists murdered your friend, and you come upon later a group of cultists
From the same cult.
you may not be so.
Kind.
Yes. I'm just gonna get this gasoline jug out.
World's a harsh place.
Yeah.
Just gonna light this whole thing on fire.
Apparently, you're not a good person.
Yeah. Yeah, I think absolutely you've got to create that. You got to create to blend both of what you guys said. You have to create a morning space proportional to
Yeah.
the investment of the character. When we were playing DCC, after we got through the funnel, Jerry had this character who was. Is it me?
Yeah, it's you.
Oh, sorry.
You were banging your thing. I'm sitting here just watching him banging his thing. It happens all the time.
Sure.
Okay.
Okay, that's fine. So Jerry had this character who was, I believe she was the party cleric. She was not a very good cleric.
No.
And she was not very smart. But she drank that potion that gave her temporary hit points,
Uh-huh.
but was going to do enough damage to her when it wore off that it was going to kill her.
Sure.
But she didn't have a choice. She drank it in order to help finish this encounter.
Uh-huh.
And once she drank it, the rest of the party knew, like, she's going to die in an hour.
I'm glad they fixed that mechanic.
So they held up in a room, and we actually talked about it. Like they
Yeah.
all hung out with her.
Yep.
And they talked with her and thanked her and whatever else. And
Oh,
then
that's
she
nice.
died.
Yeah.
Like it was, and I believe you guys like wrapped up the body. Like you couldn't
Yeah.
take it with you because you had a way
Yeah.
to go, but you had wrapped it up and stashed it with a note, like a note to yourselves. You had to come back and get her.
Yeah.
At the end of the adventure.
That's so sweet.
We had a moment. Yeah.
But it was a moment in a it was a DCC game, and it was a level 2 DCC game. Like this wasn't a heavy character investment, and at this point everybody's still playing multiple characters.
Mm-hmm.
But there was enough of an investment that it was like, well, we're gonna take 10 minutes here, and we just had like a little
There was
scene
a,
of
like I said, it's not about necessarily time. It's about moments of story that matter.
Yep.
yeah. And I think it's exactly what you guys said. It's a space proportional to the investment to the character,
Mm-hmm.
and really what you're doing is one, you're doing it for the person who lost their character, but you're also doing it for each other.
Have we ever done that topic? How to create and generate emotional investment in character?
If we have
It's been
done
a long-
it, it's
I
been a
can't
while.
remember if- I
We
can't
should.
remember.
I will
doing
put that
that.
in the
That's a great topic to do. I think we put that in
creating emotional
for
investment.
2020. I think we know what we're doing for the rest of the year.
Yeah, I mean, there's next week and then we're done.
There's
Until
next week.
New Year's Eve extravaganza.
There's next week. We're off for Christmas, and then we're back for the New Year's Eve. Yeah. So this is 2020 times. Okay. Anyway. Yeah,
So
absolutely.
let's move on to the next
Yeah.
question.
How do you deal with that strong emotional downbeat or the strong story downbeat in a game when the death occurs? Like we're in the middle of a story. How do you deal with that downbeat? And then how do you get the story going again?
So the first question that I tend to ask myself in that situation is the downbeat accompanied with an upbeat?
So for sure, if something heroic happened, like you talked about earlier, there can be a great upbeat. But sometimes in role-playing games, death is kind of senseless, like that random roll
Sure.
death.
That's why I asked. That's the first
Yeah,
question.
yeah.
Is there a strong upbeat? Because if there is, there's a bunch of different things that you do compared to just the senseless strong downbeat. Because when you have that strong downbeat, there's like a lot of emotional blah that gets thrown out all over the place.
Yeah, plus it can just kind of like it can like you could have just tossed the blanket on the enthusiasm for the story for the night, right? Like everybody's like,
Yeah,
"Oh."
that session could just collapse.
Yeah,
Yeah.
especially if you're not good at like being like, all right, this person is this character is dead. What do you do next?
Right.
And then like if nobody knows what to do, then you as a game master need to start doling out options. Like, all right, you can grab the body and return to town. You can call a family member to come in here. You can call the local authorities if that's what the game is about. It depends on the setting, of course. But you can get other people involved. You can deal with that right now. You can store the body and move on.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that if the players are in shock, right? So if the players are together enough, they'll take the next action, right?
And of course, take a break if you need to.
Yeah, it's almost always like it's almost, and again from that player layer perspective, it's almost always important to be like figure out how to close out the scene, and then be like, cool, we're closing out the scene. Okay, cool, and then we like, all right, cool, let's take a 5-minute break.
Let's talk about that when you have the strong upbeat, because the idea is catharsis. Is there any kind of catharsis or emotional closure?
Yeah.
Or any kind of grieving process that goes on? Because this is a loss.
Yeah.
Whether it's a major loss because this is a thing that you were invested in, because that's what we're talking about, character investment, or it was a meaningless loss, then there's not really any need for any of this stuff. Like when a clone dies in Paranoia, who cares because you know they're clone.
Right.
When a character dies in DCC, that character is dead, but you have some others. And
early on, yeah.
Yeah, and we don't really know who these people are yet anyway.
Yeah, early in DCC we don't know, and maybe we don't care too much.
Yeah, they don't have a lot of moments. It's why that character that was Jerry's character, when they died, it actually hurt a little bit more because that character had some moments over the course of that.
Yeah, we had played the funnel. We had played one whole adventure. We were in the middle of in the middle of our second level adventure.
Oh, is that when that character died?
Yeah.
Oh, well.
Yeah, so there was enough. There was enough. That character was around enough that we like all felt it, but not enough where like she had a whole backstory and NPC. Like we were playing modules. We weren't doing a lot of NPC interactions, right?
It's the reason why a lot of people are like, there's no downbeat when there's like a heroic death. It's because there's a downbeat, but there's also a giant upbeat because that heroic death, that death was for a reason.
Yeah. If you grab 2 M16s and stand on the bridge and fight off the minions of hell while everyone else escapes and you die, like you're like, yeah, I died. That sucks, but like I went out in the blaze of glory, right?
I stood up for my morals. And
and
what
like
I believed in.
right, and that correspond that matching upbeat to the downbeat of the loss of your character, is cool. Like it will mitigate most of what you're feeling, right? And even the other players will be like, "Damn, I can't believe we lost them," but But she did it. Like she achieved the revenge she wanted. Like she whatever.
That was epic.
Right.
Then again, it's also why nobody cares in Endgame when they kill Thanos, because that's not cathartic in any way, shape, or form.
Right.
Because guess what? Half the universe is still gone.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, when he's dead, like in that early scene, you're just like, huh. Right? Like, and it's even worse because he destroyed everything. So it's like, oh no, you're not getting the undo, right? Like, and then they kill him and you're like,
Whatever.
Well, okay.
Everybody's still dead.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is, I mean, the brilliance of that opening piece.
Uh-huh.
Anyway, yeah, so I definitely think there's a very big difference if you die in a heroic blaze of glory. And even if it's an unexpected blaze of glory, like you got into a fight, it's a rout, you're getting your asses handed to you, and as you're running out of the room, one of the characters is like, I'm gonna stay and hold this door so everyone else can get away.
Yeah.
And none of this is planned, and it's not heroic because it's not the climax of the thing, but it's still heroic, and they lose that character. That helps. It's the meaningfulness of the death.
Yeah.
So here's another thing I just saw. Somebody was mentioning their Fall of Delta Green one-shot ended with a victorious
TPK.
with no regrets. So when your story ends with everybody dying like that, then there's no aftermath. So there's nothing to worry about.
Yeah, I mean, you narrate an epilogue, like, you know, they were successful, so whatever horror doesn't make it, and they're gone because of it. But that's super satisfying.
Well, yeah, there's also, we're not playing another session, so there's no dealing with that.
Right,
Yeah.
you're just like, you know, yeah, everybody
Like,
goes
it's like, well, all right.
let's move on to the end of game party.
Yeah, for instance, in the Airy Peaks campaign that we like to talk about, 2 of the characters died. They had a little epilogue at the end. And then it's like, well, we closed the book. There's no more story. We don't have to deal with that
Yeah.
That
Yeah,
aftermath.
if you're still in the middle and there's plenty more to go, and the player that's playing Gandalf stands there and takes on the Balrog so that everybody else can get out of the mines, and he dies, then you're like, what?
Yeah, I mean they're not done yet. Like that
You know,
story
we
is still
we,
going
we
on.
have to, we still have to get to like
We haven't gotten anywhere.
Yeah.
we're barely into
It's
this.
a much bigger problem.
Yeah.
Still, like we just
Very
lost,
different than if you.
Yeah.
Hey, we just lost our wizard. What do we do?
Yeah.
Is he really a wizard?
Yeah, he is a wizard.
Yeah, at the beginning he was a shitty wizard.
He blocked the Balrog strike with his staff.
Yeah, but then he fighting with swords and shit. Like, I don't know. Like, he doesn't
I think
cast
if
a
you
lot
go
of,
through it, he gets like 5 spells the whole.
Yes, he doesn't cast a lot of spells. I'm just saying.
Where's
like,
the fireball, Gandalf? Huh?
Yeah, where's your
the damn fireball?
You gotta go watch.
Where's haste?
You gotta go watch that really terrible trilogy of movies that I don't really.
Where's a
consider
little
The Hobbit?
Where's a little bull strength? Like, jeez, man. Like he doesn't even know how to buff up. He doesn't even know how to buff up his frontline fighters.
I'm
Yeah.
telling you, if D&D came out before the Lord of the Rings, there might be a lot of different magic.
Yeah, there would
Uh-huh.
be. Gandalf would potentially be cooler.
Which that's like chicken and the egg thing.
Yeah, no. Anyway, yeah, I do think that heroic deaths definitely mitigate.
Yeah.
That heroic deaths create that upbeat that helps balance that downbeat. But it's the random senseless ones that are awful. Like they're just, and it's like you said, either the group picks themselves up and figures out what to do next, or the GM has to kind of rush into the void and start asking questions and kind of pulling everybody together and to get at least the scene closed and then take a break. And maybe your break is, we're going to take a break and we'll everybody get a drink. We're going to play in like 10 minutes. Or it's, well, we're taking a break and this session's done for tonight. We'll figure out how we're going to deal with the loss of this character and then we'll play next week.
Yeah, a lot of it is like, do you need closure? Do you need catharsis? Do people need to emotionally vent?
Yeah. And then what is the player going to do
Yeah.
to get back in the game?
Are we going to press on after that? Is the player going to get back in the game? Are we done?
I mean, it would be super shitty, right? Like
There's like a whole checklist of things that change the situation about where you are in the storytelling process.
yeah, like if you don't have, and I'm going to just use this phrasing anyway, if you don't have an insertion point, like you're on an empty starship on a long haul to another planet and your character dies, you got to figure out how you're getting another character into this story. Because the last thing you want to do is be like, dude, I'm sorry your character died, but look, we're going to be playing like 3 more sessions of this ship, so you don't have to come, but if you do, you can just sit out. Like, you can't do that, right? Like,
Well-
that's super shitty. Like,
There's only like 3 insertion points, right? There's the friendly NPC that like you look trustworthy.
Stowaway.
There's the stowaway is the person that we find that
Yes.
joins the party.
Yeah.
And the person that we already all knew.
yes. Yeah, like
I mean, if you're on the long haul ship, maybe there's a couple of other humans in cryo freeze.
well, I mean, I think that's what you wind up doing is like you suddenly decide like, well, they're gonna find a couple cryo freeze like dudes or
There's
something.
probably more than 3 insertion points. I was making a joke.
Oh, I'm trying really hard to do this. I'm trying hard to do the show.
So am I.
You're hard about something.
You started this.
Did I?
Maybe.
I don't know.
Maybe not.
Okay.
Could have been me. We can
All
always
right.
listen back to it.
Yeah, we're not going to. Give me the next question.
What is the next question? At the campaign level. Yeah, sure, that one.
Yeah,
Why
yeah.
not? What are some ways we handle adjusting the ongoing arcs to deal with the loss of a character?
Yeah, so this is the one where I think like, if everything else is urgent, this is the one where you can be thoughtful, right? Because you get out of the session, you're in campaign management mode, and you're like, okay, I got a couple arcs. One, does this arc need to be around? Do other players besides the character have investment in this arc? Yes or no? Would the game significantly change if this arc vanishes? Like, the character never comes back to see the old man at the inn, and that story never progresses. Like, maybe that doesn't have any effect. Maybe that was just for that character.
You can also, as the game master or the players, if the players / their characters are interested in finding out what happened with that old man, like, you can just
Well,
provide them some sort of epilogue at that point.
you can provide an epilogue, or maybe somebody's like, you know what? I'm going to go tell the old man that I'm gonna go tell the old man that Bob died, and now I'm gonna pick that arc up.
That's a thing a character can do.
Right, like that's a thing where you like the old man decides to like the old man's like, well, thank you for telling me. Would you care to spend some time with me? Right now, like now you've effectively handed the arc off to another player, which is
And
also an
and
option.
that's a player that went and looked for that arc to pick it back up.
Yeah,
Because they were
absolutely.
interested in it.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. So if other players are interested in that arc, what can you do to keep the arc going? If no one's interested in the arc, other than the main character who was in it,
Let it die.
you can just put that one away. And hopefully, God willing, you didn't tie your whole campaign main arc onto one character,
Hopefully
so
not.
you're fine.
Yeah. If you
did,
then you can either be like, hey, everybody, what do we do about this?
Right.
Does somebody have a secret backstory that we haven't talked about yet that can tie into it?
Yeah.
What you do is Spock puts his hand on.
Remember.
Yes. That's how you. What you call it? That's how you get yourself out of this situation.
You get your book called Deus Ex Machina out.
Yeah.
You
I'm gonna just use
the
the word
geese that was on the wizard
I'm just
is
gonna
magically
use-
passed to the fighter.
retcon.
Yeah.
You can retcon a scene before somebody died to pass the torch or something.
The retcon.
Listen.
Soon we'll be fixing our story.
Listen, if you
holes.
got
that
yourself
was good.
if you got yourself into a situation where you let a whole arc rest on a character and you got him killed, you can just go ahead and retcon that whatever that thing is passes to one of the other players.
Still is trying so hard to be the straight man today.
Which is ridiculous because sitting at this table, I'm the only one not the straight man.
That's true.
Ba-dum-bum.
It's accurate.
Nothing straight about me, boys.
So you
Anyway.
want to ask me the last question?
Yeah, no, I was going to acknowledge Avi, right? The flashback retcon is clumsy, but it's still a save. Yeah, listen, if you've jammed yourself up and can't find a way out, do the retcon. Like,
People getting paid millions of dollars in Hollywood have done it on TV shows.
and done
repeatedly.
shittier versions
Yep.
of it.
Then you will at your table, so don't feel bad about it.
Yeah. All right. So, last part. At the player level, what can we do to help the player?
I'm still laughing about the straight man thing. Straight person thing. Sorry, everybody out there.
No, I'm a man. I'm a straight man.
Yeah, I know, but that's not the way I was actually using the word.
Oh, you were talking about like in comedy,
Yeah.
the straight person.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. At the player level, like, what do we do to help the player who lost their character, right? And more importantly, what do you do if like you're like 2 hours into a con game?
I mean, we laugh at them. We shower them with derision. No, we don't do any of those things, actually.
I was you laugh at them. I was like, some tough
No.
love
Like,
there.
Where's he
He's
going
like-
with this? Let's see.
I was gonna give him a little more line before I reeled him in.
No, you can. So, what do we do with them at a convention, especially at a convention?
Yeah, because if we're playing our home game and if we're playing our home game and you lose your character,
So-
I have a lot of options. I can just end early.
So we're prepared, and we pull out the other character and hand it to them.
yeah, so I think one of the things you do, right, is
At a convention game.
right. So if you're writing your convention notes, you should probably include yourself a little note of what to do if somebody dies.
Especially if my game has character death.
Yeah, like if you're playing a musketeer game and you're running all through France, what do you do if a character dies? And you can just be like, oh, no problem. The musketeers have sent reinforcements, and this is the first musketeer who catches up with you. You're on a starship. Make sure that there's a place on the starship where like other characters can be recruited.
Or there's some NPCs rolling around that you can
Yeah,
spam them with
exactly.
the character.
Yeah, and I say this especially for convention games because your home game, you have every opportunity to stop, think, restart the game, end the game early, whatever. But at a con game, your primary function is to entertain the group of people at your table. And entertainment is continuous play in the game. And having someone get up at the 2-hour mark and pack up and leave because their character died, you have failed your entertainment
You
role.
really have.
Yeah.
So you need to make your games such that there is an opening for, okay, well, it sucked you died, but, one of the henchmen, that you brought with you into Ravenloft or whatever, picks up a sword. Here's the character sheet. Like,
Yeah.
go ahead and, you can go forth.
Yeah, Ange kind of said something along those lines. If you're running a one-shot and one of the PCs dies and it's not from player stupidity, then you as the game runner kind of screwed up, unless the game was designed to be lethal like that.
Right, and if it's designed to be lethal, you have to have a way to put more characters.
Yeah, I
back
would
in.
argue that even if it's a game that has a high lethality potential in it, you're a con game. You still want to give these people a full game experience.
Yeah.
So try and avoid it as much as
So
possible.
having a crew of other characters that are around is a good way to mitigate that. Being able to retcon yourself in games that you weren't expecting that to happen is a good way
Sure.
to mitigate that.
Ooh,
I mean-
that's a good one from Rob Day. One of Baron von Badass's henchmen was a secret agent of the king and now reveals themselves as
Hell
a secret
yeah.
ally.
That's one of
Hell
those.
yeah,
Well,
that's a-
here's another set of characters. That are just
Boom,
coming
here's
around
character
that
sheet. Get playing.
Pop in there, and here's some motivations for them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which should actually be the cool thing that happens in the game. Like, oh look, you die, but here's the spy that
Yep.
that is in position.
Yes. So I absolutely think in your prep for a convention game, you need to leave yourself that note.
Also, on that spy character sheet, they should know one of the other characters that is infiltrating. Maybe two of the other characters, so it's not in case it's the character that dies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unless there's like a whole lot of deaths, and you're like, how many spies there are in this cast?
That's why it's good to have multiple avenues of
Actually, the
that.
spy knows where the prisoners are.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
there you go.
the like we can go free the political prisoners. Yeah.
And one of them just happens to be a high-level fighter.
Exactly.
Or we know one of these guards is on the brink of turning.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That, now you've created a role play.
Now you can flip the guy.
Yeah.
There you go.
But again, for prep purposes, unless you really like the adrenaline of having to figure out these things on the fly, just a sentence or two in the side note of your adventure that says, if characters die, here's how you put more characters in the game.
So there's two very big avenues for that. Then there is retcon the situation, or make sure there's a number of characters laying around that you can add to the game as needed. Seem right? Those are the two ways to kind of fix that. So here, let me ask you a question that isn't on here. From the player side of things, what do I do to help if a character dies, or if my character dies? What do I do?
As a player,
Yeah.
one, I think you got to be emotionally honest with yourself, right? So you can't just be like, I'm fine, right? And like,
No, it's cool.
and be dying on the inside,
Yeah.
right? Like if you need a break, ask for the break. Like be emotionally honest, because losing a character that you've invested a lot into is hard, right? So that's, I think, the first thing, because I think the things I have seen that go wrong is that a player is upset, the game starts moving again, and they get very passive aggressive,
Yeah.
right? So, and a lot of that has to do with they're mad or upset and they haven't expressed it.
Yeah.
So the first part is be emotionally honest.
Yeah.
Say what you're feeling, ask for the break, take an open door if you got to, right? Get up and be like, I'm gonna need 15 on this. If you guys want to keep going, but like I gotta, hopefully the group also corresponds with you and is like, no, we're all gonna take the break.
So after I've gotten my emotional angst under control,
Then I think what you want to do is you need to work with the GM to figure out how you're going to be in the game. So
Yeah.
you need to
Find
figure
out
out what
if the GM has any of these pre-planned.
Yep. And even if they don't, if we're not in a con game,
Yeah.
what's
Yeah.
do you like can I co-GM with you tonight?
or is there an NPC that I can play?
Yeah, exactly.
Decide where
Or
you
can I
want to
play
be.
this NPC?
Right. Or the GM might be like, look, you died in this mountain pass, but there's a town in the next hex. So why don't you whip up a character, and then when we all reach town, we can have a scene where where you meet the party.
Yeah, because the party is down some resources in that person, and they'll probably want to put another person in the party.
Yeah.
Because they just need the help usually. If
Yeah.
you're playing that kind of game, usually
Yeah.
you need the help.
Yeah, I think really the thing you need to do as a player is figure out what it is you need and ask for it.
Because it's going to vary from game to game, right?
Yeah.
Totally. It's going to vary from game to game. It's going to vary where you are in the game.
Yep.
If you are in hour 3 point, you're in the third, like 3.5 hours into your 4-hour session and you die, that's different than if you were an hour into the session.
Yeah.
Now, at the end of the session, because you're going to need a character to play if it's a home game that's a campaign that's ongoing. One, it'll be different depending on if this is the first session or if it's the 10th session.
Yeah.
But some of the pieces are like, well, how can I get back into the game? Like, what are my avenues for getting back into the game? Can I actually come up with some ideas to help my game master along to get back into the game? How do I? What is the setting and the situation and the story that's going on, and what is the what do I? How do I want to fit myself back into the game?
Here's two more things. How do I turn this into an opportunity,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So I've been playing the cleric forever. I want to try something new. So how am I going to make it exciting for me again, right? So what cool thing can I take that I like? What cool class or feature or whatever? Like, oh, I've always wanted to pilot a ship. Is this a time like where we can have a ship pilot or whatever? Like, do that thing because that helps.
Or based on what we know, what interesting
That's,
story arc can I
that's
get,
the
get
other
into?
part, right? If you're 10, 20 sessions in, what can I take from the existing story canon?
Heck, even 3 sessions, and that's a lot of material.
Yeah, I mean, but the more you've played, what can I take from the existing story canon to make this more awesome? What if I'm Baron von Badass's niece,
Sure.
right? Like, what if I'm, what if I'm the niece, but nobody knows that right away, right? Like what can you? So the thing is, start thinking about what can you do to make this exciting again, because you have to overcome the sadness and loss, and one of the ways to do that is to find an opportunity for a way to play something cool that's cool for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with you. So, I mean, those are all the questions that I had then. Are we good to move on?
Yeah, I feel like it, right?
Yeah. So that's our look at this age-old topic of character death.
Yeah, it's funny when you recommended it to me at first. I was like, really? I'm like, character death's like a 101 thing. Like you do it in every seminar panel at every con. And then I was like, I started ruminating on it. And I was like, oh, I'm like the layer model. I'm like, oh.
It's also fun because we're going to do life paths next week.
Yeah, we're gonna do life
So,
paths.
A little back and forth.
Get ready to
similar
die in
movement.
character creation.
Yeah.
So what happens if you die in character creation? We'll talk about next week. All right. Like I said, that's our look at death, character death. We hope that take was novel for you folks out there. And we're going to check out the chat room one more time, and then it's off to the conversation corner.
Yeah. So Ange had a question. What about players who throw literal tantrums over their character's death, and they take their emotions overboard and take it out on everybody else at the
Yeah.
table?
So
That's
one, if you want to be friends with this person in the future, you as the game master, you as another player at the table, should be like, all right, you go take 5 minutes and go walk, because this isn't helping anybody. And like, if they're actually throwing a literal temper tantrum, like one, that's not cool.
Yeah.
Like it's a game. It's supposed to be fun.
Yeah. They need time to step back for a moment, take a breath, and then you need to have that conversation where it's like, what's really got you pissed off about that?
Yeah.
Like, was it just because you were super invested in it and you didn't know how to process it, or are you literally just being a dick at the table?
Well, there's
Like-
another piece, right? There's another piece, which is, and this is a thing that I'm always reticent to do, but if you made a ruling, right? If there was something ambiguous about the rules, you made a ruling, and the result of that ruling, which the player did not agree with, ends up in their death, they're going to be upset.
Yeah. I mean, but that's not what we're necessarily talking about.
No, but I
That's
mean-
a different situation. I think we should address that too, but that is not the thing that we're talking about.
Right, but I'm saying like if somebody made a ruling, and I know this from my 1980s gaming days,
Sure.
and they die, and somebody dies, like people get pissed off at that,
They
right?
do.
Yeah.
I mean, that is.
And I'm not saying that's justified, right?
No.
Because we all agreed when we sat down to the game that the game master would be the adjudicator of the rules
Yeah.
and had a binding effect on the outcome of the game.
Sure.
But if there is any
Hopefully
person,
fair and impartial,
well,
Yeah.
here's why things blow
or
up.
partial to the player character.
Things blow up. Things blow up when there is a problem among the players. This is almost never the reason why. This is the catalyst that sets it off.
Yeah,
If you and I are annoyed with each other, and
We'll just talk about it later.
no, I'm talking about hypothetically.
No, I mean
If-
that's what I mean hypothetically. Usually, if we're annoyed with each other,
I'm saying if you and I are in a group and we're less mature, and you're mad at me about
Oh, we're
something,
not
or
talking-
I'm mad about you at something,
Yeah.
and your character dies,
then the stuff is.
this is the inciting incident.
Yeah, things
Yeah.
are gonna bleed out.
Right. So if you've got a player who's not playing well with the players, right? Like isn't interacting well with the players, is alpha gamerish, is a bully at the table, is always wants to be the snowflake, whatever. Like if you know you can almost always tell when there's a underlying player problem. Like that's a player that could likely lose it when they lose their character.
Yeah, I mean,
And
I've had these problems at tables before.
Sure.
And the way that I do it is I will express my displeasure
yep,
about what is going on. I will let people know how I feel, and then if there's no action taken or something like that, I will vacate from the game because I am obviously not. My attitude is not making the game fun for other people.
Right.
Now, if I see somebody being a problem at a table, and it's affecting one other player, and I get a feel for the table that it's just the people are just too, I don't know, meek or
Sure.
too good friends or whatever.
don't want
like,
to engage.
Yeah, I'll be the one that'll do the engaging if I have to.
Sometimes
But-
you gotta be the asshole.
But I can, like, I have this. I don't have a problem necessarily being confrontational at times.
No,
Yeah.
and I think that's where the player blow up occurs,
Yeah.
right? Because if a player is super invested in their character and has a healthy, functional relationship with everyone else in the group, they're going to say, oh, and has some level of emotional maturity.
Sure.
They're going to say, "Wow, I can't believe I'm dead. I'm really upset about it," and everyone else is going to be like, "I know, it really sucks. We're with you," and you're going to have a discussion about, do we even want to continue playing this
Yeah.
game?
Yeah.
Whatever. But if you have a bad relationship with a group, or you don't have good emotional maturity, and your character dies, you're going to be like, "Fuck you, Chris. That was a shit call, and now I'm dead. And now it's your fault that I'm dead."
And I'm going to be like, all right, we can talk about it once you cool down.
Well, and you right, or you might be like, "Well, fuck you. All you do is nag me in the game. Like, so what?"
Sure,
Like,
there might be that too. If we're
Right,
gonna-
like-
that's not one person having a temper tantrum.
That's
two
everybody
people,
having a
that's
temper
two people blowing up at each
Yes.
other. That's a completely different group dynamic problem.
yeah.
But
So
if the best thing I can say, if somebody has a temper tantrum at the table, like from their character dying, and I'm the game master, I'm going to calmly and collectedly ask this person, look, do me a favor, go take a walk and come back in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And then we'll talk about it.
yeah.
'Cause-
Yeah, I mean things
so
things
the-
can be there are ways to fix every problem.
Yeah, and then like that there's two things. It's like you're letting the person know that they're not doing the right thing. You're telling them that there can be a discussion about the thing that occurred.
Yes.
So that they have some they don't-
Recourse.
Yeah, recourse. That way they can have the moment. Now, if they are beyond that, I mean, I don't know. Like,
Then
when-
they got to go.
when people get emotionally hijacked,
Yes.
it's not always easy.
You got then that is a good time to be like,
Like
you
we're
know
done
what?
playing tonight.
We're done playing
Yeah,
tonight.
we're good. I've done that before at tables.
Yep.
Like people have gotten uppity with me, and I'm like, all right, I'm not having fun anymore. We're gonna stop.
Yep.
We're done.
Yep, absolutely.
And that's sometimes what you have to do.
The other scenario I want to bring up, besides somebody not having good emotional maturity or having problems with the group, is somebody could be normally perfectly fine, and some other facet of their life is in distress, and this is just something that happens that they didn't expect, and they're just not in a place where they have enough spoons to cope with it.
Yeah.
So they just kind of temporarily lose it. And I think what Chris was saying, and I'm going to sum it up in one word, is empathy. Right. So what
Yeah.
Chris was saying is have empathy for this person. Right. So tell them like, look, I want to talk to you about this, but I need you to go cool off. Like we're going to talk about this.
Yeah. You're not in a position right now where you can have a conversation
Yeah.
about it because you're too emotional.
Right. And I'm not going to fight you on it because I don't want to fight with you. We're all here to have a good time. Go take that walk.
And
And come back, and you come back with like
if that doesn't work, then you just stop playing
yeah,
for
yeah,
the evening.
absolutely, and because then you just need a longer time to cool off.
Yeah, because at that point, like if they're not going to take the time to cool off, then you will say everybody else will take the time to walk
Right.
away.
I can see several different versions of this where there is a bully player, there is a really nice person who's having the worst day of their life, and there is a power struggle in the group that this thing just drops a match on top of.
Sure. Yeah.
But almost always, the character dying is not the real problem.
Yeah.
Like you need to wait until you can dig below that layer
Yeah.
to see what's really going
We did
on.
an episode on soft skills. You can go and review that.
That's old. I don't know if we revive
we
it.
did a read. We
Did
did
we?
a
Okay.
soft skills redux. I'm pretty sure.
But it's almost always that, and a amount of empathy, like Chris is saying, empathy and ready to listen is how you're going to get through that.
All right. Anything else in the chat room?
That's
We are
really
good.
That was good.
Yeah.
Boy, that reminds me of a lot of
I've had some-
1980s game.
I've had some issues. I've had some issues like that at tables, and that's just how I've always dealt with them. Like, we
I
can
will-
talk about it, and if they're not willing to talk about it, then it's just time to walk away.
I will say this: as I've gotten older, with the exception of certain games like DCC and stuff, I am very reticent to just kill someone without it having a good story meeting. And normally I'm playing games where I have that option. Like, it's hard move time. Like,
Yeah.
cool, I'm capturing you. Right? Like,
Yeah. Sure.
like I to me, the story, like, unless there's a good reason to finish someone off, if the option is in my hands to do something other than kill you, 90% of the time I'm going to do something else because one, doing something else almost always makes a better story.
Yep.
I'm going to capture you. I corrupt you. I temporarily possess you.
Yeah.
I steal your soul and go to hell, and you know, have to go get it back. Like whatever. I'm very reticent to do it. In DCC, it's completely different. DCC has an upfront understanding, like you will die in this game, and we're all okay.
All right, let's move on to the social media depository.
Yes, please.
So, we're the conversation corner, I suppose. It's not the social media depository anymore. We're just talking. We're just
That's right.
chatting.
Remember when it was the diner?
I do remember what was it was the geekery. in
The
fact.
geekery with Vera.
We had a pretty interesting discussion going on in the Slack room this week, and actually just earlier today about pulp games.
You know, did I tag you?
You
to come
tagged
in
me,
it?
but I was
did.
watching it earlier. I just didn't have the time to.
No,
like,
no, I know,
engage with it.
but there was a discussion about it, and I was like summoning. I'm like summoning Chris Nizak.
Yeah.
I mean, I was reading it before that because I saw. It's funny because I saw Brandon Barnes. He had posted the original thing. Anybody know any PBTA pulp games? And I'm sitting there, I'm watching. I'm like, I sort of half wrote because I was in the middle of working. Half wrote like I don't really know. I'm waiting to see if anybody else has got one, and I never got I never posted it because when I posted it, where I work doesn't always have the best internet connection.
Right.
But it led to a pretty fascinating discussion about pulp games and the idea of pulp in general, which, I don't know, it's kind of not the super easiest thing to define.
No, it's not. It wasn't my specialty, which is why I didn't really. It's not the genre's not my specialty, so I was like, oh, I'm gonna let Chris.
Well, Indiana Jones deals with relics and artifacts and mythology, or not a religion in a lot of ways.
sure.
The Mummy deals with horror.
Sure.
And not just Egyptian horror either, because the one with there was Chinese mummies.
Yeah.
From the Great Wall of China, the one movie. So we're talking about, ancient burial rites essentially.
Sure.
But Sky Captain of the World of Tomorrow deals with super science.
Yep.
Right.
So now we have different kinds of stories that are being told across those three fairly iconic
Sure.
pulp stories. So where does pulp then? Two-fisted pulp action is what I'm actually talking about.
Yes.
Yeah.
Fit in then, because there was also the discussion are these pulp characters are like hyper competent and they always succeed? I'm like, well, not really, because Indiana Jones barely. I mean, he always eventually gets to the end.
He succeeds forward.
There's
Yeah.
always a lot of challenge to get where he needs to go.
Yes.
And oftentimes he's not even the person who made the thing happen at the end,
Yes.
because he didn't do anything in Raiders of the Lost Ark except stand there and not look at the Ark.
Yes. Yeah, he got captured.
He got captured and then he survived.
Right.
Almost the same thing with Last Crusade because he just survived that situation.
I mean, they eventually ran far enough until backup.
Yeah, because he got
Wait, I'm sorry, not Last Crusade. I'm
Last-
thinking of
Temple of Doom.
Temple of Doom.
Yeah.
Right. He runs far. He runs long and far enough.
He
He fights what's his face.
on the side of the mountain.
Yeah, yeah.
And utters the
Right.
actual spell.
But he doesn't actually
Spell
he doesn't take
chant.
care of all the minions, like the backup.
Yeah.
Very quickly that story gets down to a one-on-one fight.
Yeah, that one's a little bit different,
Yeah.
right? And in Last Crusade, the thing opens up, and he has to make it. It's not about him. He just survives that situation too.
Yeah.
He beats the puzzles, and he survives after Elsa walks over the sigil with the Grail, and he just survives.
Well, and he survives because he's smart. Right.
Because he makes the moral choice of saving his dad instead of or going with his dad instead of getting the relic.
Yeah. But I mean, I guess the better way to put it is that he is victorious not physically. He is victorious virtuously and intellectually. Like in Raiders, he is smart enough to know when they decide to open the Ark to not look at it. Right? Despite the fact that it is a legendary historical, relic, and as a scientist, the urge to look at it,
What's
is
inside?
immense.
What's inside?
Right, but he immediately his intellect tells him don't look.
Yeah.
And he wins the Holy Grail thing because he's smart enough to know this is the cup of a carpenter.
Because he's a archaeologist.
Well,
Yeah.
but the point is that Indiana Jones doesn't win he wins the small battles with his fists, but he wins the main battles with his heart and his brain.
Yeah, and he doesn't even win the big battles. He doesn't even win all the small battles with his fist.
No, sometimes he gets the crap beat out of him, and it's just, dumb luck. Somebody
Yeah.
gets.
For instance, like there's the one thing, the sword fight where he pulls the gun. Everybody thinks about that sequence when they talk about Indiana Jones. But if you've noticed all the stuff that happened before that, he's basically running away from people.
A lot.
Because it's him versus a lot of people.
Yes.
Like he can't actually outfight all of them.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, he's not he's not superhuman.
Because he's not Doc Savage.
Yes.
Now Doc Savage could have just beat them all up.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which would have been cool.
But that's a different kind of two-fisted pulp.
Yeah.
Now, Brendan Fraser's character in The Mummy is very similar to the fighter side of Indiana Jones. In fact, what's the girl character's name in that movie?
Evie?
Evie. If you take Evie and I always forget the character of Brendan Fraser, but Evie
Rick.
and Rick. Evie and Rick and put them together, they are Indy.
Sure. I can see
So
that.
they have that's Indiana Jones' skill set split up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In my opinion. But even them, like it's often a fail forward thing.
Yeah.
Like they're competent characters, but they are often in situations that are way over their head. Mm-hmm. And then they survive them, sort of on their skill and on pure luck,
Yep.
and on knowledge and heart, like you said.
Exactly.
That is generally how those kind of pulp heroes, the ones that we're used to in some of the iconic movies that we know, survive things. Now, Jude Law in Sky Captain of Tomorrow, if I remember correctly, he doesn't survive that stuff by being lucky. He's just better than everybody else. He is more of a Doc Savage iconic character. Like he's hyper competent. And
I would agree with that.
but that's also an investigative story, which is not exactly the same as some of the other things.
Right.
So pulp is like I don't really know what the mainstays of pulp are.
I think the initial discussion of is there a PBTA game that's an Indiana Jones like game is I am not aware of one. I mean, that's not to say there isn't one because there's like bajillions of PBTA games. One can go to the Apocalypse World. You go to Baker's website and look at all the ones that have been listed. There's a good hope you might find something there.
The closest thing I've played to a pulp game as far as like Power by the Apocalypse goes is our version of Dungeon World. But that's
Sure.
me running it with the pulp dials turned all the way up.
Yeah.
I recommend playing the TSR Indiana Jones game.
To you now.
I think if you really,
And by recommend, he's shaking his head. No.
I mean, you don't get to play Indiana Jones, so don't worry. Like
Yeah.
that won't be a problem. That heap of trash.
All right, I talked for a little while. My batteries are about to die. Yours?
No, I think I'm all bars.
Yeah.
I'm all bars, but here.
No, that's okay. I got some
you
over
got
here.
you
If
got your own
all
spot.
butters.
So go ahead, Phil. You can say something.
Sure. Yeah. So I'm still Minecrafting. It's season 3, and season 3 is going great. The server is populated. It is very rare that I log onto the server and someone isn't hanging around. Like there are a couple different shifts.
Yep.
Like Gator, Jerry, Schmitty, and I tend to be the night shift.
Yep.
There's an evening shift that is like Bob, Mike D, Rich and Savannah, and so depending on when you come into the game, like different
Victor
people.
tends to be late afternoon into the evening.
Yeah. So there's different, when you come in at different times, there's different people there. And what I like in season 3 compared to seasons 1 and 2 is that, and I was talking about this with Gator today on Slack, is that we put enough mod packs in there that everybody has kind of gone off in a different direction to pursue different types of mod packs and stuff. And before, when we had less mod packs, there was almost a competitive nature to how far you could get into a pack.
Yeah.
And really, the secret to Minecraft is there isn't a competition. It's really about wanting to do a thing and then going out and doing it. Like, you always are into building.
Yeah.
You very much like to build a base.
I like to do things with aesthetic value.
Yeah.
And I'm not super deep into, I'm going to do all the mechanism machines. And yeah.
Right. I'm very much about wanting to do solve a particular problem. Like, I want to do mob grinding, but I want to do mob grinding differently than I've done it in,
Yeah.
than in Ender.io, because I already have done that. Like, I want to make a different mob grinder, or I'm gonna solve this problem that I'm having. Like I like that part, and I like the multi-stage project thing. Like I'm gonna upgrade my house with all wireless power, and I made a project plan and a network diagram on my lunch break the other day, and was like, okay, well, I need to build these networks and these components, and so I like that kind of stuff. And like right now, Mike D is putting together like a really big project to produce community power. Like he's building this large scale farm to make gasoline so that we can burn it, and then he's going to help share and distribute it. And I was like, I will help you with that. Like, I'm in for I'll do my part to help build some stuff for that. And yeah, Jerry likes to rehab villages.
Yep.
Or now that he's rehabbed one that he really likes, he likes to go and clean out villages and bring them to his. But yeah, I'm really digging season 3. I'm having a lot of fun with it. It's fun having everyone on, and I'm still definitely there's still enough in the game to do that I don't feel like I'm running out of stuff. Because even if I get to the end of the tech stuff, which I don't think I'm going to get to the end of the tech stuff for a while, I could switch and do magic stuff. Like I could completely switch and go into astral sorcery, which would put me right back at the beginning of the curve of learning. I just would have enough resources that I wouldn't have to grind for survival. Like I would just be like, cool, I can start working on this stuff. And we added enough things into the world, so overland travel is interesting.
Yeah.
Like flying over the world and finding random ruins and dungeons and things like that is like now an occurrence. So it's fun. Season 3 Minecraft is kicking ass. I'm pretty sure for season 4 we will drop a couple of mods out based on who didn't really play what, or swap some out. But I'm not even remotely thinking about season 4 right now. I'm firmly entrenched in 3. How about you, Bob?
Yeah, so we already talked earlier a little bit about Things from the Flood turning out to be very heavy with a lot of bleed. And I hadn't even realized it until Glenn brought it up. And then I went, wow, yeah, come to think of it now, looking back, I've been carrying that with me deeper into the week than I normally would from my other Sunday games. So that's a thing that we're looking at. And it was an interesting revelation that I hadn't even thought about. Started watching the Crisis on Infinite Earths crossover on the CW. The first 2 episodes are up. I have aired, and it's interesting. They started with a bang. It does not disappoint if you're into that stuff. So that's looking like it's going to be good. And I'm gearing up now to make a character for Chris's Eberron campaign on Friday night.
Warforged Monk.
I've done the Warforged Monk before, so I'm going to try and go in a different direction. But
I think he's gonna play a warlock.
I was leaning towards a warlock, but then you said one of the last characters that was in there was a warlock already, and I'm like, well,
Yeah, that's true.
I don't want to be too, derivative of the previous, I don't want to be highly derivative of the genre.
There's only so many.
There's only so many classes.
Yeah.
But anyhow,
And just because you're a warlock doesn't mean you're that same warlock.
no, every you can make 10 warlocks and they would all be different.
And they'll have different packs, and
Yep.
different everythings.
Yeah. But anyhow, that's my thing. Between now and Friday, I gotta dig some stuff out and see what my options are. Put something together,
Cool.
and then go totally disrupt the dynamic at the table.
That's what happens.
Hopefully not.
Hey, disruption doesn't mean bad.
Yes.
There are things called disruptive innovations, right? Where the disruption changes the world for a positive thing. So there is disruption just means that there is a temporary suspension of stasis, right? We move from a space of homeostasis to a place of change. So disruption, not bad. We give it a negative connotation, but it just means an opportunity. So yes, you are going to disrupt the group, but you're likely going to disrupt the group for the better.
Yeah.
All right. Let's move on to some Patreon shoutouts. So Brandon Barnes, the old school DM, the Mad Wizard Sean Merwin, Troy Sandlin, Will Doyle, Zach Owens, thank you so much for being our patrons. Got some more here. Chris Constantine, Cindy Moore, Eric Mengi, Eric Simon, Miko Freilich, Andrew Dempsey, V, Waxberg, Brett,
Chris Steele.
The Chromatic Chameleon, Curtis Y. Takahashi, Daniel Thomas, Evil Rich, and J. David Chrisman. Thank you all so much for being our patrons. We greatly appreciate it. It helps us pay for all this stuff.
That's how we do what we do.
Yeah. That's you, Bob.
Yes, it is. Thank you to everyone for listening tonight.
If you are free on Tuesday evenings at 8 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. the Queen's time, come join us live on Twitch, where you can chat with the other listeners in the ever awesome chat room for life and ask us the occasional question.
You know, if you can't make it to the live show, you should check out our podcast each week wherever you get your podcast. This week it's a little bit late. Sorry about that, everybody. Also, take a listen to some of the other shows in the Misdirected Mark Network, such as Down with D&D, Bone Stern Obsidian, Pandas Talking Games, The Gnome Cast, Zheng Yu Hustle, She's a Super Geek, and Bonus Experience. You can and should also check out our sibling podcast, The Tabletop Bellhop. They just came out with an episode about two-player games.
Nice.
The Knights of the Night, they're playing Blades in the Dark. And the always amazing Gaming and BS, which they were mentioning about, not that they're going to anytime, but like if they were going to stop podcasting, they would let everybody know when they were going to stop podcasting.
Is that Gaming and BS?
Yeah.
I love those guys.
Yeah, I love those guys too.
Show up on their last show.
I feel like that's probably not a thing. Maybe the penultimate
Second to
show?
left.
Well,
You
show?
have to close all your story arcs. So
Yeah,
they could
right.
close the story arc with us. They could do a show with us. And then-
Exactly, yeah.
After you have skipped off the mortal coil and before you roll up your next character, leave us some feedback. You can reach us directly on the old-fashioned email system, mmp@misdirectedmark.com. Check us out on Twitter. The show and the network is at Misdirected Mark. This guy over here is at Robert M. Everson. That guy is the Light 101, and I am DNA Phil.
If you like what we do here and on the other shows in the Misdirected Mark Network, you can support our Patreon campaigns. MMP, Down with D&D, and Pandas Talking Games are at patreon.com/MMP. She's a Super Geek is at patreon.com/SassGeek. Zhang Yu Hustle is at patreon.com/Zhang Yu Hustle. And Bonus Experience is at patreon.com/Bonus Experience. Patrons of MMP, Down with D&D, and Pandas Talking Games get access to the after show, pre-production show notes, musical parodies, the Pandas Talking Games bonus outtakes, which are awesome, and other special releases.
This has been a Misdirected Mark production, which is the media arm of Encoded Designs. Mic drop.
We out.